Russia is actively digging up graves in Syria, looking for the remains of the late Israeli spy Eli Cohen, who was executed in 1965. Cohen, who is remembered as a hero in Israel, made headlines again 2 years ago when he was portrayed by actor Sacha Baron Cohen in the 2019 Netflix series The Spy. Now, a report in Arab media claims that the search could be part of a recent prison swap deal between Syria and Israel after a young Israeli woman illegally crossed the border and was held for 2 weeks before her return. Let's speak with Middle East expert from Tel Aviv University, Eyal Zisser. Thank you so much for joining me today, Eyal.
Thank you.
So Eli Cohen is an important part of Israel's story. Why has it taken until now to make a deal to have his remains returned? Has Israel commented or confirmed that this is happening?
Well, first of all, because it's important to Israel and the Syrians are fully aware the importance, significance of this issue for Israel, well, they make it more difficult for us to get the remains of his body. But the story is more complicated. I mean, for us in Israel, this issue is very sensitive. Let me remind you what President Hafez al-Assad said to one of the American Secretary of State who visited Damascus and raised those humanitarian issues. He said to him, you know, I don't understand Israelis. During the Six-Day War, 700 Syrian soldiers were killed and were buried in the Golan Heights. We don't know where they are, where they were buried, and we don't care. They are dead. We respect their memory, but that's it for us. So there is always this gap between the Israeli sensitivity and the indifference of the other side. And in the case of Eli Cohen, the Syrian argument was for many years that they lost any track. I mean, it was in the previous regime before Hafez al-Assad came to power already in '65, and then was a revolution, and then the Six-Day War, and they lost any track to the grave where it was, because the body was removed, and the official explanation was we don't know anything about it, and it's not so important for us, and if we don't get something in return, why should we care? So it's mainly because of the Israeli pressure and because of the Russian involvement that this issue was raised once again.
Interesting. We heard that this may have been part of the deal to have the Israeli girl returned from Syria in exchange for buying them vaccines. Is this some sort of new diplomacy between Israel and Syria? Could they possibly be warming up to one another?
Well, I think warming up mainly to the Russians. I mean, this shows you the degree to what degree Vladimir Putin and the Russian became involved in Syrian affairs and in Syrian-Israeli relations. So there is always an open channel when it comes between Israel and Syria, when it comes to the ceasefire committee, the observers on the ceasefires that they are there since '74, and they look for the border crossing and when Druze from the Golan Heights cross to Syria and vice versa. So there are open channels, but when it comes to something more important, more significant, in the past, these were the Americans who played some role during the years where there were direct or indirect negotiations, peace negotiations between Israel and Syria under the auspices of the United States. Now it's Russia. So Russia is there, and it shows you that both Bashar al-Assad and Netanyahu want Putin to be happy.
Some interesting developments. Eyal Zisser, thank you so much.
Thank you.